Michael Ireland, welcome, Michael Ireland, EXP, out in White Rock. You're a legend. How long have you been in the business for?
Licensed in 1994, Mark. So I guess that puts me in veteran territory, like you.
31 years. So for me, I was licensed in 95.
Oh, well, you jumped right into a market that where the NDP, I think right after that, put the province in a headlock until what, the year 2000?
Yeah, exactly. But I didn't know it. So no idea. I graduated from BCIT and I got my real estate license and I just sold real estate. Within a week of getting into the business, I sold someone a house in North Vancouver, and then I sold my parents' cleaning lady a place in Richmond. And I didn't know any better. I had no idea it was a bad market. But people in the office, especially the realtors that have been in the business for 30 years, like us, were like, "Oh my gosh, this is terrible." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" So, but I wanted to do this call because I'm like, I noticed that there's some similarities now and in the 90s. So what are some of the similarities that you're seeing, Michael?
Well, they may actually be emblematic of the similarities that we've seen throughout recorded history, as long as we've had organized markets. And so the similarities are that when uncertainty enters into the equation, it is human nature that people tend to withdraw action. They tend to be of the wait and see approach. And obviously, markets become the stories people hear about and the stories people talk about. Okay. So, what we saw back then is we had a lot of gravity in the ether with the economic news. So, as it pertains to housing, Mark, yeah, I saw people thinking, well, I'm not going to take any action now to say in terms of buying because what if prices drop further? Sellers may be thinking, well, I'm not going to sell right now because what if prices go up soon? So it's the uncertainty, and I think we're all aware of that, how that is a motivation to action or non-action, either certainty or uncertainty. And so what I see similar there is that even though we've organically followed a typical cycle of correction, which generally takes about 18 to 24 months. This is recorded history, folks.
Yeah.
Okay. And what do they say about the most important lesson that we can all learn from history is that people don't learn from history. And that we have followed that typical organic cycle, and it's the same anatomy every time. It's a different story that's presented. So, where we seem to be right now is in that same spirit of, okay, just waiting and seeing. There's so much chaos to manage. I'm not certain about my future. And now what we have at the same time is that there's a contrarian group of people out there that are seeing opportunity in the chaos. When others are fearful, be greedy. When others are greedy, be fearful. So this does not change in markets nor in human history. So people have to really see that when markets are down, you buy up in a down market, meaning if you're looking for a discount on real estate, buy something that's in the top end of the market because that's probably seen the greatest price reductions. And but here's what will happen, just like it happened back in the 90s, just like it happened in the year 2000, and on in that whole 7 to 10 year horizon, the market's going to go up and have a bonanza for maybe 3, 4, 5 years. Maybe that gets pushed a little further, like with all the inflationary money printing we had with COVID. But then eventually, the equal and opposite reaction to that is going to be the market's going to correct rather dramatically, usually around 10 to 12 points. Guess what we've corrected in the last 18 months, Mark? Yeah, roughly around 10 points. So, yeah. So I have no way to forecast the future, but I do know this, that, and I'm sure everybody would agree, a decade from now, people will gaze back on this occasion of time and go, either of two testimonies. I am so glad that I bought then. Okay. Or I should have bought that back then. Do not forget history, because those who don't learn from the lessons from history are what? They're doomed to repeat those same errors.
one thing I remember, and it was 96, 97. I'd call people and you know, I worked with a lot of buyers and I try to get them to buy, and they're like, why would I buy right now when I'm making 20, 30% on the stock market? And real estate hasn't done anything. I'm here, and I was hearing that last year, and I was hearing that up until about a month ago. Did you hear that from clients? And did you hear clients say that?
Yeah, people are looking for, some of them are looking for 100% assurance that they cannot make a mistake. Okay. And others are fairly comfortable with a little bit of risk because the upside is just so big and shiny and beautiful. All right. And there's an old saying, and I think Ozzie Juroff will give him credit for that, and that is, you will always make the most money in real estate the day you buy. So there are specific values out there right now that will not be available in 3 months, and likely no chance of them being available in 1 year. So for those who are looking for 100% assurance, they're probably not going to get it. But do remember this, that providing the life event or the investment objective that you have to purchase or sell real estate, that the market, the current one we're in, call it up or down, will facilitate that. There's always bargains, and fortune tends to favor the bold.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I mean, it's funny because it's like when you think the market couldn't get any worse, that's when it gets better. And I've seen it before. I mean, I remember 2011, 2008, and then there was some time after that. But this one's definitely a lot different. Like this sort of reminds me going back into like early 80s territories as far as volume going. But you remember the 80s.
Well, indeed. And for those of us who are old enough to have even bought or owned real estate in the early 1980s and remember the double digit rates, and by that, I don't mean 12%, guys, I'm talking about 21%.
Yeah.
And we saw real estate prices crash. And let me say what crash looks like. We had a spec home listed at 274.9, turned down an offer of 265, and a year and a half later sold it for 134.
Wow.
So we're not in that market. So, but you know, those were extraordinary times. And I suppose that the message out there for those who are wanting to know, how do I navigate the current market? Really, timing the market. You can't do it with you
Yeah.
can't beat the S&P. Okay, guys, you can't beat the index. So don't try to time markets. Just simply buy quality, buy it at what is apparent discount for most quality items right now, and hold the quality so that when the tailwinds of inflation come back, then you've got a really nice wave to surf.
Yeah. Um, you know, talking about values of homes in the 80s, like when I got into the market, I remember, you know, for a while prices didn't go up. And I remember in 1998, I sold a house in Main Street for $216,000 in the Main Street area. And now that house would be 2.6 million.
Oh, Mark.
You know, and the first house I bought, and that would have been in 98. I think I bought it for 416, and it sold last year for over 3 million. So like give
Well,
me an
I
example in White Rock. Like, do you remember the first house you sold in 1994?
I do recall that that was a condo, and it was actually a condo that sold. I think it was for probably 107,000. A very nice 2 bedroom condo in a place called Michaud Gardens on Michaud Crescent and Langley. And now that condo, and that was actually 1990. Yeah, it was mid 1994 when we were starting to feel the gravity of the market falling. And now that condo by probably 1997 could arguably have dropped down to, you know, maybe in the range of $95,000. What is that condo worth today? It would be an easy 550 to 575. So I don't know if anybody has an abacus to calculate rate of returns, but that's pretty solid. Probably would beat somebody's RSP returns anyway, notwithstanding they had a place to live. And by the way, who's pays cash for real estate? So really, you make a
Yeah,
$400,000 profit on a property, and maybe you would only put 5% down. So really, your rates of return were extraordinary. So it's important to buy real estate by using a calculator so you understand real rates of return and also understand after-tax advantages. If you can follow that theory, you'll see that not only is real estate still the sustainable, superior investment, but a market like this offers you buying that asset at a very good discount and basically gives you the assurance that maybe not 6 months from now, probably 1 year from now, and definitely 5 years from now, you won't be one of those people saying, shoulda, woulda, coulda.
yeah. Give me an example of a house because, like, I mean, we've seen houses where we've sold. I remember, there's land assemblies that's happened with land. Where we like, we sold a house for, gosh, 200,000, and the next thing is it's selling for 4 million, like 20 years later. Like that's where the big bucks is. Do you
Yeah.
remember
So,
any of those?
well, Mark, I can only cite an example from 2008. And, those of us who are real estate contemporaries remember the market had a very serious correction then. So if the
Yeah.
2008 example is relevant, because who can't gaze back and remember that we had a global economic meltdown, uh, probably far more serious in nature than the one we're experiencing right now. And so property was purchased by the buyer for $685,000. It was a 1 acre development land. That property sold 2 years ago for 2,600,2.685. Again, I can't calculate rates of return on my fingers, but that would be a very healthy rate of return. What else could you have purchased in that horizon of time outside of maybe Bitcoin that could have given you that kind of rate of return? And remember, if you bought it as a personal residence, everything that was profit would go right into your Levi's, not like all your other investments.
Well, that's the thing. And I used to do an ad in the paper, and it said, "Your landlord thanks you for paying his mortgage. If you want to pay down your own equity, call me," type of thing. So, I mean, it doesn't make more sense. You get a roof over your head, you're paying down equity, and you're paying your own mortgage down. You're not paying someone else's mortgage.
Oh, Mark, indeed. And let me also inquire from you. Is it clear to you the messaging and the lamentations coming from the Canadian population that we have a housing shortage?
Well, guess what? No one's building right now. All the big building projects are on hold. And what do you think is going to happen in 4 years from now?
So are you saying that we have not just current healthy demand, but a latent extraordinary demand coming into the housing sector?
The demand is going to be crazy. And in my newsletter, and this is funny, I was joking with another realtor the other day. We both had open houses in the same sort of area. And I'm like, hey, did you see that couple that went through? I mean, I had 35 groups. So we're in a bad market and I have 35 groups come through a 2 hour period. And I'm like, did you see those people that went through with the baby strollers? And he's like, yeah, they were pregnant a year ago. It's the same people looking right now, and they were looking last year. But now their families are bigger.
So, Mark, it sounds like we can be virtually certain that we have a wave of demand coming in to the Canadian housing market. Would that be fair to say?
Absolutely.
Now, how soon that becomes apparent to everybody, we don't know, but we know it's probably
Well,
sooner than later.
I know, because you see, we've been in a pretty, I would say this is our third year in a down market almost,
Yes.
right? Like we started seeing some problems in end of 2022, and it's 2025.
Yes.
Right? So we've got interest rates that are dropping. We've got a change in government. And I tell you, it doesn't matter if the liberals get in or the conservatives get in. there is change coming because the government knows people are pretty unhappy. So they're going to make some changes. The interest rate's going down, and then the pent-up demand over 2 years of people not buying, it's going to be a boom market because when everybody buys, everybody buys.
Therefore, Mark, if that be so, and I wholeheartedly agree with you, because what you're saying is so consistent with economic cycles, then would it not be wise for somebody recognizing that enormous demand and then concurrently the value of these assets having been discounted over the last 2 years to pick up your piece of that asset now before the demand pushes the price up?
Well, exactly. It's funny. I was talking to a builder the other day, and I'm like, what a great time to buy property. And he's like, I know, if only I had money to buy property. And that's why it's a bad market, right? Because there's not the flow of money's not going around. So people are scared, everybody's holding tight, and then all of a sudden everything lets loose.
Well, I like that term all of a sudden because I believe that's what people experience here. Just like every other time people waited on the fence, or how's that they say the three kinds of people in life: people who make things happen, people who watch things happen, and people who then wonder what happened. So we have to decide which group we're going to be in. Are we going to take action and enter into the market as a participant now? Or are we going to later wonder what happened because it all happened so fast and now I can't onboard that train?
So, Michael, it's so awesome that you've made the time to go to do this Zoom with me. What advice would you give new agents?
Yes, be like you, Mark, and I don't mean to patronize, but there is the story about the guy watching the bumblebee flying against a window and reflecting on the science that it's been proven that thermodynamically a bumblebee cannot fly the size of its body versus its wing displacement. I think we all heard this little analogy, right? But yet nobody found a way to tell the bumblebee they can't fly. And so I think when we are new and novel in this industry, is that if you're in your head, you're dead.
Yeah.
Take action and make sure the action is massive action. Do what you did when you and I started. We simply didn't know any better. Forrest Gump style. We just got out there and started doing our job. And we all know what that is as realtors. Find people who need our services and get buyers and sellers together. And just do not pay attention to the noise and the drama. It too will pass. And all that will remain is the results of your actions and your commitments to yourself and to your clients and to your business plan.
And for the buyers and sellers out there, what word of advice would you have for them?
Well, the word action comes to mind again. And, remember, when a market begins to turn, and it will turn very quickly, as we know, then opportunity does not wait long for anybody. So I have a friend who's a duck hunter. I believe you are one as well, Mark. And you can sit there with that rifle in your hand, but you cannot declare this a shotgun. Yeah, well, yeah, you're so good with a rifle, you could probably hit a duck, Mark.
You're not allowed to do that.
Thanks for the reminder. Well, Mark, you cannot aim a duck to death, correct?
No.
We must take action. We must pull the trigger. And so take action on your goals. Just know this, the market might be giving you a bit of a headwind now, but those winds of change will turn very quickly. And to your point, Mark, I believe it will happen after we have an election result where people can exhale, knowing at least they know what they're dealing with. We know that eventually tariffs will resolve themselves as everything does, and then people will resume action into their life, and life events will have them coming into the market in massive numbers. So, important to be a contrarian and, take action now, because you don't want to be, like they say, if you're not the lead dog, the view is not going to change.
And one of the things that we didn't mention is there's a foreign buyers ban right now. Well, at the end of 2026, that ban's off.
What will that mean to demand?
Well, there's going to be a lot of foreign buyers wanting to buy in Canada.
Well, you know, given what you could be buying our dollar for at that time, wherever it's at, and our undervalued assets, I would concur. So I think it's very clear the picture for those that see, for those that choose to be an opportunist. And if you have the capacity, consider if there's ever been a time in your life where you did not jump on a time in a season that was appropriate, and later how you had a little bit of regret. Do not let this time be like that time.
Exactly. Well, on that note, Michael, we're at 26 minutes, so thank you for coming on. And if anybody's looking to buy or sell real estate in South Surrey, White Rock, Michael Ireland is the man. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you for the endorsement, Mark. I appreciate you, and thanks everyone for paying attention.
Right on. We'll catch you later. Bye now.